Throwback to that time that I was homeless in one of the party capitals of the world, Mykonos. And of course, this was done when your girl was solo traveling. I was traveling on 10 euros a day, including accommodation, because that's how I used to roll. I did a lot of couch surfing. If you don't know, couch surfing is like a free version of Airbnb. There's an app where you meet people and you're like, hey, can I sleep on your couch? They're like, hey, no problem, come on over. I usually was pretty last minute about how I did this. I was very new to traveling Europe. I was rocking up to Mykonos at 9 p.m. and I was messaging a whole bunch of people for couch surfing, being like, hey, kind of last minute, but can I stay on your couch? Little did I know that Mykonos is so touristy, barely any locals live there. Barely any hosts on the app. And the ones that were hosting were kind of weird. Like, there was this one guy in his 40s and he owned a nudist household. You get a lot of these in Europe because Europe's very like free. Usually you don't touch the nudists because obviously it's just a bit of a weird culture and I'm not really about that. But on this occasion, the options were homeless or nudist. And I decided that nudist was probably the better option. I messaged him and I was like, hey. And he was like, hey, I'd love to stay with you. Are you a nudist? No. You can only stay with me if you're a nudist. I won't be there very often. Please just take me in, otherwise I'll be homeless. You'll feel uncomfortable if we're all nude and you're not, so no, you can't come. Okay, thanks. Bye. I was on the ferry over to Mykonos. I arrived at 9 p.m. and I was like, look, I'm gonna have to stay in a hostel. No walkers. Let me just type in hostels. The cheapest hostel bed for one night was 100 euros a night. That is 160 Australian dollars for one night in a bed. I was traveling on 10 euros a day including accommodation. That was like my whole blog. I was like, absolutely not. Also, the ferry out of there was 5 days later, so I was gonna spend almost $1,000 on accommodation. But last minute, as I was literally rocking up at 9 p.m, there was this guy, really weird guy, but he was like, hi, you can stay with me, but you have to cook me dinner. I was like, that's so fine, I'll do that anyway, of course. Ended up cooking me dinner, but it was liver and I was vegetarian at this time. Hi. So I had to try not to vomit. His house was actually very small, probably the size of this room with his toilet and his living space all included. And he rents it out as much as he can. So the next night, he had to rent it out and he was like, I'm gonna take you to the store and you'll get a sleeping bag and I'll help you out. He was staying with a friend. I got a sleeping bag and then I spent the next few nights sleeping on the beach. I would wake up and my entire face was bumpy. Mosquitoes had literally mauled my face. Like there was no spots where there wasn't bumps. The whole time that I was homeless, I still was on the app frantically trying to find someone to stay with. And there was this one guy from Rome who was super creepy. I'm gonna have to make a part 2, but I'm gonna make a part 2.